Welcome to the Scrybabies Podcast. I'm Lily Stardust.
I'm Tori of the Best.
This is a new thing that we're trying. Surprise. In the year of 2024, we've been wanting to do something new. I know that a lot of people seem to like me and Tori having just banter and conversations.
They think we're funny.
Yeah.
They like us. Thank you for liking us.
So since we want to try something different, I know that some of you might have noticed that we aren't doing Scrybabies 60 anymore. So in place of that, we'll be doing more gameplay episodes and this podcast.
Yep, this is what you're going to see, and I guess you're going to hear. All
on
right.
Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and also here on YouTube. So if you want to see all the things we're talking about, the pop-ups on screen, go to YouTube. And if you're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, leave us a review and let us know that you're excited for this. But today we're going to be talking about every deck we played in 2023. We had a lot of episodes go out, technically 22 CDH and EDH games this year, which is pretty good. So we're going to go through all of our decks. We're going to put them on an S tier system, which means the S tier decks are going to be the best decks that we're bringing into 2024 and we're stoked to play. A is can make it into 2024 but needs a little bit of work. B is, I'm probably not going to be using this deck again. It would need a lot of upgrades. C is, we're probably going to just completely scratch this and use it for parts.
See you later.
Yeah, see you later. And D is absolutely not, never again.
Yeah, Dookie deck.
Dookie decks. So we're going to rank them on that tier system. And yeah, talk a little bit about like some behind the scenes aspects of filming these episodes, our favorite parts, things like that. So let's get right into it. The first episode we had launched this year was with our friends, the Spike Feeders.
Up in good old Canada.
Yes, we went over there to film for their show, and then they let us film one episode for us. And we played CDH.
We did.
And you played Krark and Sakashima.
I did play Krark and Sakashima. So if you do not know this deck, it is a storm deck. Krark is whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you flip a coin. If you lose the flip, you return the spell to your hand. And if you win the flip, you copy the spell and choose a new target for it. It has partner, so you could partner it with any other partner commander. And you partner with Sakashima of 1,000 Faces, which if you play Commander, you know this card. It comes in as a copy of another creature you control, except it has the other abilities of Sakashima, and it has a legend rule, so you can have multiple legendary creatures with the same one. So yeah, you basically make 2 copies of Krark. You want to make many copies of Krark. There's many ways in the deck to do that. And you want to just copy all of the really good instants and sorcery spells that you have, storm off, and drain all your opponents, kill them all with many different complicated, complex ways.
Yeah, this is a fun deck, but it's one I will never try to play. It's just a deck that, 1, Storm makes my brain hurt. 2, the amount of Krark things, which I love what Ken does. And I know some other people do this too. They'll have like the Krark copy kind of tokens, and they'll use that to represent it because it's such a long and complicated thing, but it's really fun deck.
I think this deck is probably going to be an A tier for me. It would be S if I understood it a little bit better. I think with more practice and a better understanding of how the triggers work, I would probably be able to put this in the S tier deck, because if you can do this deck well, it is a really good deck. I think this deck's great also because it kind of forces you to learn how the stack works and how to stack triggers. So if that's something that you want to improve upon, you could try this deck out, maybe just with your friends to see how it goes, but it was a good learning deck.
Yeah, if you watch that episode too, Tori has the most based proxies in the deck.
I picked ridiculous proxies because I was just like, you know what? Who cares?
Yeah, you have Dockside Mr. Krabs.
Dockside Mr. Krabs.
Waifu Titty.
Force of Will. Yeah, I have some choices that I made.
It's definitely a silly deck. I love that one. I played Winota, which, if you know me, that is like my favorite commander. Winota is a Boros commander, and whenever you have a non-human attack, you will look at your top 6 and put out a human tapped and attacking with it. So you basically put like goblins and silly little creatures in there, and then hope that you hit big like stacks, humans and other interesting humans for the deck too. I love this deck. It was really fun to play on the channel. I think I hard casted an Angras Marauders, which is like my favorite card in the deck. It's so silly. But for right now, I think when I started playing it last year, it felt like an S tier deck to me. At this point, it's kind of on the A tier. The deck needs a lot of work, and it's suffering in Boros colors. I think it had an upper hand advantage when the deck came out, and in CDH especially. But yes, it is a deck that I will always hold dear to my heart, and is a deck that I will bring into next year, but will need some work. So probably A tier. The next episode we had this year was A Table Full of Worms, and that was with Veggie Wagon and Mental Misplay.
Yes, it was A Table Full of Worms. Did I play the First Sliver on this one?
You did play the First Sliver.
I did play the First Sliver in this one. First Sliver is probably one of my favorite decks ever. So this one is a Woodbury Commander, and it has Cascade. So whenever you cast it, you get to start cascading, and all of the Sliver spells you have cast Cascade. First Sliver also is partnered, or it has a companion. It has Gigantha. So Gigantha, as a companion, you cannot have more than one mana symbol of the same type in any of the cards in your deck. So it had some challenges to it. That way, you have to think about how you're building the rest of the 99. But Gigantha's great because if you tap Gigantha, you get Woodbury mana. So you can cast your First Sliver way easier once it is inevitably destroyed by everybody else who hates it. Favorite deck to play. Everyone loves it. They love it. No one hates this deck.
I like it because it was also, this episode was called A Table Full of Worms because of that and Tempting Worm. Mm-hmm. So when Veggie played that, we all just put out a bunch of crazy cards, and it was really fun. What would you rank this deck?
The First Sliver gets an S for me. It is S tier. I think this deck is an S tier for me because it's disgusting. It has a bunch of cool creatures in it. It also has a wheel in it, so that way you can always keep cascading into a 0 spell. I think the only problem with this deck is sometimes you have to mulligan correctly, because if you do not have the mana fixing or some cool little things to put out in your first couple of turns, it can feel a little slow, but Gigantha's there.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I feel like Gigantha could be like really good or a hindrance of the way of being like your deck has to be built really specifically, but you also get a huge advantage with Gigantha having all that mana too. So
yeah,
pretty cool. I played a Lathril, Blade of the Elves. So this was a pre-con deck that had came out for a Kaldheim, which is like right after we started playing. I think it was like the first set to come out or second set to come out. I love this deck. Elves in general are very easy to play. I think it's a great beginner deck if you want to get into Commander. It is a Golgari deck, so it's green and black. And she is a 2/3 with Menace. Whenever she deals combat damage to a player, you make that many plus, you make that many 1/1 elves. It's pretty good. You get her nice and big. You make a bunch of elves. If you have 10 elves, you tap down 10 and Lathril to drain the table for 10 and gain 10. So I think this commander is like an all-star. I think it's always in the top rankings of EDH Rec as well. And it's definitely an S tier for me. We got a lot of new cards with the Lord of the Rings set this year that made it really fun to play. I also think you got a lot of slivers this year too, because there was like Secret Lair ones.
There were Secret Lair slivers. There was the Commander Master Sliver deck. To be honest, I haven't really made any changes to the deck.
I don't think it needs it, but you could always look to see. Like,
there's always some fun things you can shift around.
Yeah, I think with like the Typal or like Kindred decks too, it's really easy to find like a new switch for that, and we've been getting really blessed with a lot of sets coming out, so lots of new cards. But I would also say that is an S tier deck for me. That was also one of the funniest games we played too, so definitely check that out. It really was. Our third episode was the CDH Rivals with Comedian and Mono White Guy. Both of these decks have been ranked because we played Winota and Krark Sakashima here, but it is a good CDH game, so definitely check that out. The next game we played was Oops All Legends with Veggie and a girl named Ron. You played Kaalia.
I did play Kaalia. Kaalia the Vast, my namesake deck, my pet deck, if you will. So Kaalia, if you do not know, costs a colorless mana, a red, white, and a black. It's flying 2/2. Whenever it attacks an opponent, you may put a angel, demon, or dragon card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. This deck is probably an A right now as opposed to an S, only because this commander is a hate on-site commander. As soon as you cast it, everyone wants to get rid of it, and it's a very commander-centric deck. So if your commander is not in play, you are probably going to have some trouble because most of the rest of the deck is very large creatures that you're cheating out. I do love playing it. I actually just put some new mana rocks in there to add some ramp to it, which is hard in these colors, but had to have some fixing just so that way when Kaalia is killed 10 times and costs 400 mana, you can hardcast the really good pieces in it. But this deck slaps. I recommend Kaalia to people who like to win by combat.
Yeah. It is, we are combat girlies.
We are combat girlies.
I think is fun, because in this game I also played Yuriko, which is a combat girly. She's a Dimir deck, and she has ninjutsu, which is one of the most busted abilities. On top of that, she has commander ninjutsu, so you will never have to pay that commander tax on her. It is a very great deck. Whenever a ninja you control deals combat damage to a player, you reveal the top card of your library, put that card into your hand. Each opponent loses life equal to its mana value. So I like to put big spells that are like 8 drops, 12 drops, even if they don't get played, to stack my deck with whatever spells I'm casting, a scroll rack, a preordain, whatever it is, or Ponder is the one that puts them back on top. Which one? Brain is not working. Whatever it is, you do the cheap spell, you put the big thing on top, you flip it, and just do that much damage. I love this deck, but I don't think it's a great casual deck. It's very mean. The commander gets hated out for sure, but not in the way you think, because people don't want to put her back in the command zone because she's so cheap. They're hitting your other stuff, but it makes it really hard to politic. That's a deck that you cannot politic with, because either you get the gamble of what's on top, you don't know, or you're intentionally putting the big spells there.
Yeah, you can't really make a deal with anybody with that deck, because you don't know.
I think so. So for me, I would put it on a B tier. I don't think it is a great like casual commander. I think it is a good CDH deck. I think it's a good beginner CDH deck, and that would be like on my A tier for that. But for casual, it's more of the B tier. I don't think I'm going to be playing that going into this year, because I don't really think it fits the table the way I would like it to. The next episode we had, which was one of my favorites of the year, was with Lady Danger and Lady Danger and Rachel Weeks, and they had dragons.
They did have dragons. I think they had Corvold and
was Gizith the is it
Glizzy?
One?
Yeah.
The Glizzy. They had that. And I played my Mike in 11 deck, so I also had dragons and dungeons and all that good stuff. And you played Mirri.
Yep, I did not play any dragons.
Yep.
Lo and behold.
You're so close.
Mirri Weatherlight Duelist. For 1 colorless, a green, and a white. It is a cat warrior. I love this deck. It has first strike. Whenever Mirri is attacking, each opponent cannot block with more than 1 creature per in this combat. And as long as Mirri is tapped, no one can attack me with more than 1 creature. This deck is S tier for me. It is probably one of my favorite decks ever. It was one of the first decks that I sat down and put a lot of time and effort into making. It's really fun. There's multiple ways you could build it. This deck I play as almost like a Voltron commander, also with tokens and some light stacks pieces. There's so many ways you can go about building this deck. You can either go full token route, full Voltron route. There's just so much you could do. I think this is a really fun commander for people who are new to commander to play, especially because a lot of the green cards have so much synergy with each other. And it's also just fun. It's a cheap commander. A lot of the spells in here are cheap, and it's just a really good time. I also never really see people play this commander often.
I think it has a really cool ability. I also love that your sleeves are little Oliver sleeves, which is her cat.
They are. My cat is a pirate.
It's very cute.
Yes, and I have the secret lair Mirri of just a little kitten.
I do love that. That was also, I have a cat named Mirri, and when I got her, I asked Tori for names, and she said that, and I was like, it kind of is her. So that's my cat's namesake, and so I love when you play this deck. I think it's really silly.
Yeah, I think I need to put some new cards in the deck. There is that new cat from Ixalan that I have on my desk at home, and some other cards to put in here that are new in green and white, and there's always new cool creatures coming out in green. So
I think we also like this isn't like a bad thing, but we get so stuck on being like, this deck is good, why do I need to put new things in it? And until like a new big set, like for me, like Atlaplani, I put like every dinosaur in, right? So I don't think we think about that until a big set comes out, but I think that maybe like every 6 months we go and revisit the deck and be like, what can this get,
what new cool stuff can I put in here?
Because I think they get so comfortable and good that you're like, I don't want to change anything.
I don't want to mess with it.
Yeah,
it's like the Nestle Toll House cookies. You don't mess with that perfect recipe. It's gonna be good every time.
Yeah, the consistency, we like it. So I play Mike in 11, like I said. They have a different name in whatever the other cards were. I think it's like Sicily and something. I genuinely couldn't tell you. But I play this because I wanted a cool 5-color deck, and we love Stranger Things. Mike is kind of just there for color fixing, but he can get things out of the graveyard. So you could pay 2 colorless and tap Mike to choose a target creature in your graveyard that was put there on the battlefield this turn. It returns to the battlefield tapped, which is a good way to get things out of your graveyard. But the real all-star of the deck is 11. She is a Grixis commander, and your maximum hand size is 11, which we love. Whenever she attacks, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. Then if you have 11 or more cards in your hand, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand without paying its mana cost. Broken. So this deck lets me play all of the big sorcery spells, so I can play like all the ultimatums. I'll usually go for those. Conflux is a very good free card that you can get to get a lot of good cards out of your deck. And it does a lot of things that I want to. It gives me like a strong commander. She's like a 3/5, so it's not the smallest. This deck makes a lot of clues as well because we have Hopper and Max and Will and Lucas and all those characters from Stranger Things. So I wanted it to feel like it's Mike's D&D game, and this is the atmosphere for it. So there is dungeons, there is dragons, and then like I said, there's those clue tokens, which we also will use like Academy Manufacturer to make everything you can think of. So make a lot of tokens, do dungeons, do dragons. That's kind of the theme of it. It's a really fun thematic deck for me. I would put it in my S tier just because I think it's fun to bring to the table. We got a lot of new dragons and the D&D set that came out last year or 2 years ago. 2022.
Yeah, 2022.
Was very good for it. So it's a great deck and I love playing it. Our next episode was Let Them Cook with comedian Uril, and you played Timna Kraum for the first time.
I did play Timna Kraum. I love Timna and Kraum. That's the blue farm deck. They are 2 partner commanders. I like playing partners, like a cowboy. So Timna is a white and a black and a colorless. It's got lifelink. It's a 2/2. At the beginning of your post-combat main phase, you may pay X life, where X is the number of opponents that were dealt damage this turn, and if you do, you draw X cards. You could draw up to 3 cards, which is pretty cool. And then we have Kraum, Ludovic's Opus. It is a flying haste 4/4. It is 3 colorless, a blue, and a red. Whenever an opponent casts his or her second spell each turn, you draw a card. So this deck plays all of the good cards, draws you a bunch of cards. There's a lot of different win conditions in here. There's a Thassa's Oracle.
Yeah.
We love a Thassa's Oracle in this house. And there's just a bunch of other cool cards in here. I just know that this deck is played by a lot of the SCG grinders who go into CEDH because it just plays good cards.
Yeah, it is like the perceived best deck in the format. I don't really think there is like a best deck for CDH, but it does all the things you want it to. You have 2 really powerful commanders in the command zone that have a lot of card advantage and card draw in general, and you're playing some of the best colors possible. So
yeah, you're playing everything but green.
Yeah. What do you think of it?
I love Timna Kraum. I love that I am not good at it, so that way I can always keep playing it to learn something new. That is my only problem with the deck. I think this deck is definitely going to be S tier because it is just one of the best decks. I'm just not as good at it because I don't really know the win conditions outside of the Thassa's Oracle that well, but I also know that if I took the time to sit down and play this more often, I'd probably do much better. Yeah, I think Timna Kraum's an S tier deck. Yeah. And I'm definitely going to be playing that more in 2024. And I'm going to try to... The whole goal for this year was also to find my CDH deck that fits me well.
Yeah. I think it's good, too, because it has a lot of the, like, essentials for CDH. You have the Underworld Breach stuff. You have the Thassa's Oracle. You have the, like, common cards that you'll see across a lot of these decks, too. Mm-hmm. And also, like... Ristic Study is very good with a card draw deck that lets you draw a lot of cards anyways.
Yeah.
Having a flyer that's super big and comes out very easy. It has haste too, right?
It does.
Yeah, correct. So good CDH deck. I played Winota. So we've seen Winota. We've heard of Winota already. So we'll go to our next episode. The next one was Sliver Me Timbers with Bobby, Christine, and Giraffenette, which was a great game to play. We love both of them so much. And it was really special to have a first, like, all-girl pod. Or our second all-girl pod.
Second all-girl pod, and the first Commander game I won.
Yes. You played the First Sliver again.
I did play the First Sliver, and I absolutely blew up everybody with the, what's it called?
The Blasphemous Act.
Blasphemous Act. That was the one.
When the realization of like you looking at this card being like, holy shit, can I do this? And then once it got confirmed, you're like, yeah, I was like,
I can just win right now. This is awesome.
It was a very silly and challenging game.
It was. And they were just great. So
I played a thing that I think was a little underpowered, which was a Rin and Seri deck. I literally call it my pet deck because it plays actually just cats and dogs and isn't super busted. We had filmed a game before this where my deck was being way too scary and I wanted to kind of just power it down, so I tried this. I think this is a great casual deck. I would definitely put it in kind of like the B tier. Like, it's definitely a little bit underpowered. It's a great casual deck, but it's not what I would usually bring to the table. So for every dog spell that you cast, you create a 1/1 cat creature token, and then for every cat that you cast, you get a 1/1 dog creature token. So you make a bunch of those, and then you'll use Rin and Seri's ability, which is paying Naya and tapping Rin and Seri to deal damage to any target equal to the number of dogs you control and gaining life equal to the number of cats you control. So you can gain a lot of life and do things like that. I like to play it the silly way, and so it is definitely not optimized, but I could see it having some like cooler upgrades maybe in the future where I would enjoy playing this at a casual table. It's just not on my roster right now. Our next deck was explosive CDH combos with Uril and Madanon, and this time you were the one who played Winota.
This was my first time playing Winota, and I had a lot of fun with it. Winota is really fun CDH deck. It's a great deck to give to somebody like me who was not really sure what I was doing with CDH, because it's kind of like, cast this and then things will happen, and most of the things that will happen are good because it's full of good cards.
It's a good like intro to CDH, I think, for casual players, because you can see Winota in casual plans as well. And I think she has a lot of really great abilities. I think it was easy for you too, because it's basically like go punch, go wide.
It's not a combo deck, so it's nice that you don't have to rely on knowing what the lines are. You can just kind of go.
Well, the combos we have is like Combat Celebrant and Kiki Jiki, which is gonna do what you want to do anyways. It's not like too complicated. So where would you rank it?
I think Winota's a tier deck. Yeah, I think Winota is the same issue with Kaalia, where people kill it on sight because that's how you win the game with it.
She's pretty much impossible to play at tournaments right now. I played Kinnan Bonder Prodigy, which was the second CDH deck I started playing because it felt so close to Winota for me. One, they're both Ikoria baddies, and two, Kinnan's ability is similar. So you can pay 5 colorless, a green, and a blue to look at the top 5 cards of your library. You can put a non-human card onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of your library. So this felt very Winota-ish to me. Kinnan is only Simic to cast, so 1 green and 1 blue, and then whenever you top a non-land permanent for mana, you add 1 mana of that type that the permanent produced. So it's just busted. It's really easy to get to the 7 mana for that ability. This deck plays so much good stuff, and this commander literally just combos with Basalt Monolith, which is like the easiest, silliest thing you can do. It's a 2-card thing, makes it super easy. You can get a Mirage Mirror out or some other spell to fix your mana that is colorless, make it into colored mana, and then go for some kind of infinite combo. I prefer to do like the Tidespout Tyrant or the Hullbreaker one, where you basically are just putting your spells back into your hand and constantly casting those until you get to your win con. This is kind of a S tier deck for me. I don't love to play it because it requires me thinking about every piece of mana consistently, and sometimes those wins can feel a little hard to explain. I know when I have the win at hand, it's just hard to execute them sometimes for me, but I think it's a great commander. This is a card where I don't even think you could really play it in casual because it's just such a
Kinnan's
strong.
really good.
Yeah, it's really good. It's a 2/2 for literally 2 mana. If he dies, you're fine. You can cast him next turn. So yeah, great card. Definitely an S tier deck. I don't know if I will be playing too much of it next year, but I think it constantly gets like good upgrades and new additions to it. The deck is kind of perfect as is, though. After this, we played the Lord of the Rings precons, which is one of the most fun games we play with Ian and Steve, our partners. So if you haven't checked that out yet, definitely go do so. But moving on, episode 10 was with Joe Johnson and Anna Margaret. So
that was a good episode.
This was a good episode. This was also the longest episode we recorded this year.
Ever.
I think it was like 2.5, almost 3 hours long.
It was a long one.
Yeah. So the fact that our editor got it down to however long it was, like an hour and change, claps for them because that was a lot.
Yes.
This game, you played Uril.
I did play Uril, the Mist Stalker. Uril is 2 colorless, a green, a white, and a red. It's got hexproof. It's a 5/5, and it gets +2/+2 for each aura attached to it. I love this deck. This deck was made in one of our Patreon building nights, so everybody in our Patreon had some help in assisting making this deck. It's basically like playing a giant Bogle. It's super fun. You get to cast a bunch of enchantments and auras and power Uril up, because he'll get a bunch of +2/+2 buffs from all the stuff on him, plus whatever additional things you put on him, and he's hexproof. So it's a very fun, big, stompy idiot deck, and there's just really good cards in those colors too. This deck to me is an A tier. I think because he's a little expensive, so he takes a bit to get out. This deck, I think, is something I'm going to tinker with for 2024 to make it a little bit better. I know there's some really good cards in the colors I don't have that I should probably put in there. Some better enchantments. And also, I think there's just new cards in general that would do really good in this deck. But I'm definitely going to keep it around because I have an awesome Modfly Altar, the Philly Fanatic, as Uril. So, yeah.
It's a great
deck.
It's a great deck to watch you play too, because you're always like, I have hexproof.
It's great.
It's very good. But I also, your altar, I think, really makes it special. And I think it's when you don't see a lot. It's very much like the Bigfoot deck. Like, I think it's a really cool commander, but you don't see it too often. So I think he's kind of underrated and really cool. You see him in the 99 a lot.
Yes.
But I think there's also great colors for the type of deck you're trying to build with that. In this episode, I played Tatsunari. So when this card came out, I was excited because it was the first time we had like a good Sultai enchantment commander, but also there was a big frog, and I love frogs. So whenever you cast an enchantment spell, if you don't control a creature named Kami, you create that frog. It's a legendary 3/3 black and green frog creature token with whenever you cast an enchantment spell, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So it's a life gain and life drain deck. Basically play as many enchantments as you can to do the thing. You can also play 1 in a green or a blue so that Tatsunari and target frog you control can't be blocked this creature except by creatures with flying or reach. So I think that ability is pretty cool. I like to also fill my deck with silly frogs. So there's like, what's his name? Grolnock, like the green and the blue one. Get frogs in there. I have some like silly low powered frogs too, because you could just make it so a target frog can't be blocked that turn on top of Kami if it's not there. And yeah, I think this is kind of like, I want to say it's an A tier. Like I want to tinker with it, but it's somewhere between A and B because I don't think it's the craziest deck, but I do think it is one I definitely want to tinker with. So maybe we'll say it's A, and I'll see how I'm feeling after that. I think I've played other enchantment decks, which we'll talk about later, but this was the closest to like what I want an enchantment deck to do, and I think it's really fun to have kind of the life gain and drain effect with it. So I enjoyed playing this, and this was one of the most fun episodes we had. It's a really silly one. We got to play at the Quest for the Janklord studio, which we're so grateful for them for letting us film there while we were at MagicCon Minneapolis.
Yeah, and it was a beautiful set, so
yeah, it was really cool, and we enjoyed that, which is awesome because our next episode was with Quest for the Janklord. We played Two-Headed Giant. This is our first and currently only Two-Headed Giant game we have on the channel, and we had gone there and played some CH with them on their channel, so check out that episode. It was very fun. In this episode, you played Mirri again, and I played Auntie Blyte. We went there with our decks, and the guys are famously known for playing jank on their channel. And so when they said our only casual decks are extra turn decks, we definitely did not come with the right decks to the party.
Yeah, that was a bad choice.
But we real zeroed and we were fine playing the game. Like we weren't like, oh, absolutely not. Like went into the game knowing that could happen. I just didn't expect it to happen as quickly. And
it was awesome.
It was awesome. It was really fun. The guys were super silly. They did the whole like instinct thing that we, try to bite off from them as well. But yes, so Auntie Blyte is a mono red commander. She first appeared in Jumpstart, and I wanted to kind of try a task of like building different mono color commanders throughout the years, or just last year in general, and I got to a few of them. So she is a 2/2 with flying, 3 mana, 2 colorless, and 1 red to cast. Whenever a source you control deals damage to you, you put that many +1/+1 counters on Auntie, and you can pay 1 in red to tap and remove X 1/1 counters from Auntie Blyte to do X damage to any target. So this deck is kind of like a glutton for punishment deck. You hurt yourself to hurt other people. I thought it would do really well for the two of us because like even if we took a little bit of damage, it would be enough to get them for their life total. And one of my favorite silly things is it does play a Wheel of Misfortune, which we'll get into a little bit later, but it is a 1 spell combo with your commander to do enough commander damage. So I was like, oh, we can do that and kill them. When I died, or when we died to them in the episode, I did have the spell in hand. I thought it was too early to cast it, which was a mistake because immediately after they popped off with extra turns.
Wrecked.
So we could have had it.
We did it. We were like, no, let's be nice. This is supposed to be entertaining. And
yes.
we just got killed.
And we got killed. But it was very silly, and I think we made some good moves in that game, so definitely check that one out. Our next episode was with Play to Win. This was a very highly requested episode. People have been asking for this for a while. I always joke that me and Tori are the gender-bent version of Cam and Dylan, because we're same energy of like chaotic, silly stuff. Yeah,
it's kind of eerily spooky how much our personalities mirror them.
And we also just like have a lot of like similarities in a lot of ways. But you said spooky, which was great because we play this game during a big thunderstorm.
Yeah, it was scary outside.
Yeah, and so it's really funny.
And scary inside playing those decks.
You could definitely catch a lot of silly like things happening with the weather, and it's just a great game. In this, we played Kinnan and Timna Kraum, so we don't need to get much into that, but again, it's one of the best games we filmed, and you should absolutely check it out.
It's one of the most watched episodes.
Yes, it's one of the most watched episodes. I get absolutely shut off by Cam. It's so funny. Please go watch it. Tori, that's the game where you cast it.
I did what is called a spite play.
Well, before the spite play, you did a demonic consultation for a Force of Will, and it was like the 3rd card?
Yeah, and I died.
So it's good, and it's worth watching.
It's fun.
Our next episode was Cover No Blue with Cover Go Blue and Aiden, which you can tell us how you know Aiden.
Yeah, so if you are in the competitive Magic community and you've seen Aiden before and Chris, his dad, Aiden is essentially what we call a child prodigy of Magic. Aiden gets coached by Nathan Stoyer, and Aiden and Chris are just really awesome people. So I invited them down to come film with us and Nathan Stoyer, and we had a great time. Aiden's a really good kid, really good at Magic, and this was his first time, I think, playing on a Commander show. So it was a lot of fun. We had a good time.
So one thing I want to note is we played a game with CGB and Nathan Story that we unfortunately lost due to some camera and mic issues, which we're trying to fix this year. So subscribe to our Patreon. Thank you. But we got to film additional games, and I'm really glad that Aiden's games got to stay because he was a really fun, good, like, spirited player. Like, he was never salty. He made a lot of funny comments, and the decks he played were really good too.
Yeah, Aiden's really, really cracked at Magic, so it was fun to see how he built his decks and see him put all of the cool skills he's learned through coaching into not just, constructed Magic, but also in Commander.
Yeah, very cool. You played Mirri in this one. I got to play Gyome. Gyome is one of my favorite silly food decks. I would kind of put him on a B tier right now just because I'm trying out a 5-color food, but if that doesn't work out, he's going to go back up to A. I love this deck. He is a trampoline 5/3 for Golgari and 2 colorless, and at the beginning of your end step, you create a number of food tokens equal to the number of non-token creatures you had enter the battlefield under your control this turn. This is, again, a very life gain, life drain deck. I love Academy Manufacturer. Is that his name? Yes, that card is always my favorite. It's a staple in these decks. I love making food, clue, and treasure tokens. I will do it forever. This deck also, if you sacrifice a food, target creature gains indestructible until end of turn. So this deck is very good for that. I use a lot of Eldraine cards, so it's very fantasy themed, but also I have cards like Hot Soup and things that don't need to be in the deck for flavor. Literally Flavor Town. I told Tori I really need a Guy Fieri, like Gyome one too. So I love this deck. It's really fun. Again, it's in a B place right now. If my 5-color food deck does not work out the way I want to, he'll go back up to A and we'll make some adjustments, but it is a card I will always have in my rotation. I love this deck. Our next game was with Mental Misplay and Dylan. This was called Play to Misplay. In this you played Timna Kraum, so that was awesome. Love to see it. I played Pako Haldan. This is the first time I played this deck. This is one of my favorite decks. I actually got to top 16 with it this year in a CDH tournament, or last year since we're in 2024 now. But it was a very cool deck to try out, and I think this episode, if you're interested in playing the deck, really showcases what it does. So this deck is a teamer deck. You have Haldan, which is the other commander partner, and you can play non-creature spells from your exile with the have fetch counters on them. The way you get this is with Pako, Arcane Retriever, who is a 3/3 with haste. So whenever Pako attacks, each player is going to reveal the top card of their library, and for each non-creature card revealed this way, it'll get a +1/+1 counter. So that means if everybody hits a non-creature, it'll get 4 counters, and on turn whatever this gets out, which is usually 1 or 2, it'll be a 7/7. Pretty good, very easy commander to build up and just do the combat damage thing. This deck really wants you to keep all opponents alive so you can get as many cards as possible to get to your win con or their win con, which has been done before. And then you can cast those spells with Haldan because he can cast those spells for mana of any color, and you can play those lands. It's just a very cool deck. It has like the advantage or the disadvantage of everybody being able to see the cards that you do get with it. So either it'll be like, ooh, Lua has that spell, I want her to burn it now. Or you could say, hey buddies, this is our counter spell. We can use it together. So extra turns, silly combat stuff. This is a S tier deck for me. I know it probably isn't the best deck in CDH, but I do think it's really fun and has 1, big beefy commander, 2, a lot of card draw advantages, and 3, the ability to play other people's spells. I did a Taint to Pack the other day in Ad Nauseam. Like, I've been able to do crazy stuff with it. So
yeah,
good deck.
Rob other people.
I love to do that. Our next episode was again with Aiden, and this time it was with Nathan. So Nathan came to play, as we mentioned before. Nathan didn't have any casual decks, so he borrowed my Auntie Blyte deck, and Tori played Uril again, and I played Minn. Minn hasn't gotten a lot of spotlight. This was one of the mono blue decks that I had made with Ian this year. She is a little illusions deck. So I wanted something that was like funny and cute for blue, because I feel like mono blue is always scary.
It's always gross.
Yeah, you don't want to play Urza, you don't want to play something crazy. So I felt like if I played Minn, it's whenever you draw your second card each turn, you make a 1/1 blue illusion creature token. This creature gets +1 for each other illusion you control. So you basically try to make a bunch of illusions, and whenever one dies, you may put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to that card's power from your hand onto the battlefield. So I think it's a really cool ability and a fun way to do mono blue.
It is.
Yes.
You can be blue and fun.
Yes.
Look at that.
But it didn't get to do anything because Nathan killed me very early on.
Yeah. That's a good episode.
It's good. We also don't know how to read Wheel of Misfortune. And so Tori took half your life total, I think.
It didn't even matter.
It didn't matter.
The world champion killed us.
Yes. And so it is a silly game that I would absolutely say to go watch. Number 16 was another CDH game that Tori was not in, so we're going to skip to number 17, which was our $50 budget decks with Mod and Ken. In this episode, Tori played Marwyn, and I played Budget Slimefoot. The Slimefoot deck didn't do what I needed to do. It's definitely like in the C tier of let me just scrap it for parts and then see what will happen. But I would be open to making another $50 budget deck for Slimefoot, because I do think it's fun. I like the Golgari thing, of course, and there's a lot of good like little sapperlings and fungus cards that will work really great with it. However, it didn't really pull through in this game, but I like our $50 budgets and I think we should do more.
I agree. I played Marwyn the Nurturer. So Marwyn is whenever another elf enters the battlefield under your control, you put a +1/+1 counter on Marwyn, and you can tap it to add an amount of green equal to Marwyn's power. Steve built this deck for me because I was like, I need to build a budget deck. And he was like, well, we have Marwyn. Let's rip apart everything we have in the house and check it out on Moxfield to see if it's $50. And it was. This deck slapped. This deck was an S tier budget deck. And we've also played this and brought it with us to Vegas this year. And it actually beat Mirri and a bunch of other power level 7 decks because it was just so cracked. So this deck's awesome. I think this is a great deck for people to check out that are either new to Commander, or if you want something that's fun and a little bit different, you could build this budget, or you could buy it budget and upgrade just a couple of cards and it's still insanely good. So yeah, S tier for the budget, S tier for the cards, S tier for the fun.
Yeah, I think Marwyn is just like a very good commander no matter what. I've definitely seen people trying to play her in CDH too. Our next episode was with Peachy Pop and Mook Dubs. This was the TikToker pod.
TikTok pod.
It was great. In this you played Uril.
I played Uril.
And in this I also played Neera. So Neera is one of my favorite commanders. She is expensive though. She is 4 colorless, a red and a blue to cast. She is a 2/7, so that is a really nice thing. She's also a human elf shaman, which comes up a lot more than you would think. So Neera is whenever you cast a spell, you may put that card to the bottom of your library. If you do, you reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card, and you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then you put the rest of the cards on the bottom of your library. So I love this commander. I think she's a really fun like chaos spellslinger deck. You get to put a lot of big things out. So right now she has a lot of Eldrazi in it, so you can cast a small spell, flip into something big. I have a lot of instants and sorceries that will also have big effects as well, and so I love playing this deck. I just put a River Song in it, which is basically a card that lets you draw from the bottom of your deck. So now whenever River Song is out, I will pay for that cantrip to go out, flip a big spell off the top, and then put the other spell right on the bottom, and that kind of just lets me constantly get those cantrips out and flip for a big thing, which is awesome. I would say she's an S tier for me. I think she could definitely use some tweaks here and there, but everything that I've done to it recently has really made me feel like it is better than it is in this particular video. So we filmed a new episode with her, which you'll see soon, and I think it's a really great deck. The next episode, Tori didn't play, but it was New Capenna commanders are built different. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Tivit. I think Tivit is a great beginner commander, and Esper gives you all those card things that you want to happen. It's a voting deck. You have a big flyer. You can go and get your, Time Sieve. Yes, Time Sieve with it. And so you could do the thing where you have infinite turns and you kill everybody with your big commander. It's also got the classic Thassa's Oracle stuff in it if you want to have it. You could play ad nauseum if that is your cup of tea. It is a great beginner deck, very simple combo, easy to learn. So I just want to throw that out there. It's not for me. I would kind of say it's on a B for me. I wouldn't really reach for this deck again. But if it was a thing at the table, I don't mind seeing it for CDH. I think I want to build it for casual though. I think it would be a fun, silly, like, voting deck.
Yeah.
And I would prefer that over the CDH deck, I think. The next episode was the Ballad of Badgers and Elves, which we played with Mook Dubs again and our friend Josh from Elden Drunken Highlander. In this deck, we played 2 different decks that I think the 2 of us weren't very fond of. Tori, you borrowed our friend Seth's Brudiclad deck.
I did play Brudiclad, the Telcor Engineer, 4 colorless, a white and a blue, or a blue and a red. This commander is expensive. Creature tokens you control have haste. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you create a 2/1 blue mirror artifact creature token, and you may choose a token you control, and if you do, each other token you control becomes a copy of that token. This is a good deck, in theory. This is a good deck for Seth to play. I could not get this deck to do anything. I kind of just sat around with it, so this is a D tier for me. It was dookie, but that was just for me. Seth's a great person, and Seth probably plays this deck really well. But for me, it was a big fat no. I think I want to make a artifact deck. It will not be with Brudiclad.
I understand that. I played and I can never say this.
Anikthea.
Yes. This was the pre-con that had came out for Commander Masters, and so I basically just took most of that, changed the mana base a little bit, and added some cards into it because I was like, oh, let's try this. Which, you know, we're all about Black Girl Magic here. I was very stoked for this card. Excuse my French. Very, very excited for it. It did not give me what I wanted. So it's a 4/4 with Menace. It is 2 colorless, a white, a black, and a green to cast. And other enchantment creatures you control have Menace. When she enters the battlefield or attacks, you exile up to 1 target non-aura or oh my god, this card has a lot of words. The point is, it does zombie stuff. And it doesn't really give me what I wanted out of an enchantment deck. The way that I play Tatsunari, I felt like that was exactly what I wanted, and this deck is definitely a D tier for me. I think the commander could be cool, it's just not for me, and I think that I would rather play something like Tatsunari that gives me the advantage of like a silly frog and doing a more fun thing than this, which just like I would rather play like my Liliana deck or something else that has zombies in it versus this kind of concept. I also missed blue a lot. I think the white cards weren't like super hitting for me besides Sithis, which I love. I would rather play Sithis over this commander in general. So I think she's a great design for a character, just not for me. Our next episode, we played CH again with Cam and Ken. This was a really fun one. I played Pako and Haldan again, but this time you played Najeela.
I did play Najeela. So Najeela is 2 colorless and a red, a nice cheap commander. Whenever a warrior attacks, you may have its controller create a 1/1 white warrior creature token that's tapped and attacking, which is great because Najeela is a warrior. For Wooburg, you can untap all attacking creatures, and they gain trample, lifelink, and haste until end of turn. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase, and you can activate that ability during combat. This deck is awesome. It plays all the good cards because it has Wooburg in it. Najeela is one of the decks in 2024 that I would like to play a lot more of. I think this deck's really fun. I think it's great because the commander's pretty cheap. And it's also not as confusing as Krark Sakashima.
Yeah.
So that will be a deck that I think is S tier and will continue to be S tier and only get better.
I think it's also S tier. It's one that I have been playing as well recently. I played 4 games with it. I've gone 2-2 with it. This deck gives you everything you want. You can have your Thassa's Oracle. You have your Underworld Breach, Brain Freeze, LED combo stuff. But you also can just use Najeela as a powerhouse to attack with a bunch of warriors and either just do combat damage that way. You can get a Grim Hireling, a Derevi out. Like, there's just honestly so much that happens. And also with this deck, it just feels good. Every time I draw a set of cards, I'm like, wow, this feels really good to play. Having all of the mana colors that you can possibly have to do things with is fantastic. I think the hardest thing is maybe like using those fetches to get the correct mana that you need or the right, like those are the kind of struggles with the deck. But even then, like, she is so busted in herself. She is definitely a hated commander. People aren't going to want you to cast it, but she costs 3 mana. You could literally use 1 Jewel Lotus and be like, here's my commander. Or you could do it again like turn 2 or 3. Like, it's really not too difficult to get her out early. So yeah, S tier commander, great beginner commander if you're looking to play CDH, and yeah, top tier. Our next episode and final episode of 2023 was with our friends Peachy Pop and Cobert MTG, who are also on TikTok.
Yes, and I played Peachy's deck. I played, is it Kaalia or Kaalia?
I thought it was...
Kaalia?
No, that's correct, but I thought it was Cobert's deck.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. The Kindler of Hope. So it is a Vigilance 4/4 commander. It is colorless, a green, a white, and a blue. You may look at the top card of your library at any time, and you can cast auras and enchantments from the top of your library. And when you cast an equipment spell this way, it gains 1 and enters the battlefield attached to a target creature you control, which is awesome. This is a deck that I don't think it popped off for me on the episode, but I would like to give this a shot and maybe build this someday on my own, only because I do love equipment decks. I do love playing Hammer in Modern. So this deck sounds fun, considering if you have this commander out, you basically have a Sigarda's Aid. Really cool deck. I think this is underrated and is probably like an A tier for someone who's really, really played this a lot and has their own list. So on the episode, it was kind of like a B for me, but I think this could be maybe the relationship I wasn't expecting. This could be the one I was like, I passed it in the hallway in high school and just rolled my eyes. But later on, down the road, knew it was the one.
I think that is a great way of looking at it. So that is everything that we played this year. Here is our beautiful tier list in general. You can make one for your own and let us know what your favorites were this year too. I think the biggest things for me going into next year, I really want to play Neera again. I really want to make those upgrades to Mike and 11 that I was talking about. And I'm really excited to give Winota another go. What are you looking forward to playing?
In 2024, I am looking forward to finding a CDH deck that is for me. Whether that be Blue Farm or Najeela, we'll see. Or maybe, just maybe, something new will come out, considering the format is so unsolved.
There's stuff all the time.
It could be anything. It could be anything. So maybe in 2024, I'm looking for that. And I'm hoping to tinker with some of my decks like Uril and some of my other classic favorites. Maybe I'll just rebuild Mirri a little bit and bring those back. I'm very big on having my favorite toys and just continuously playing with those toys all the time. But I do need to build something new.
Yeah, for sure.
New stuff for the show. Because I know you guys want to see new commanders and different decks on the show. So we will be building different decks to play.
You can do that by going to our Patreon. Our Patreon is as low as $1. We have tiers for everything and everyone. We have some custom tokens and stickers that Tori does every month on there. And we also do monthly deck builds, or game
We all
nights.
go to IKEA and we get a desk.
Yeah, we all get a desk and we're there together. But we do these deck builds. So like Tori mentioned Uril, I have some commanders that I built this year. We built a new Lara Croft deck. We built the Nazgul. We built a ton of stuff. So you'll be seeing those decks on the show this year. So if you want to give us any suggestions, you could do so on there. We also would love if you can show some support to this podcast and let us know what you want to see from us this year. We're going to be trying to do more of those set reviews. So Murders of Carlisle Manor, you'll get some stuff for that soon. And just really talking about stuff that inspires us with Magic, silly things, maybe some interviews. We would really love to hear what you want to hear from us.
Yeah, so let us know in the comments. And don't feel afraid to tell us what you want to see or hear while you're driving to work or playing with Legos on the floor and listening to us talk.
And lastly, if you want Tori's really cool beanie that she's wearing, we have a bonfire store where you can get all your Hot People Play Magic, which was definitely the all-star of
It was
our
the
shop
all-star
this year.
of the year, yeah, 2023.
For sure. So we have new designs coming every month. We try to put up 1 or 2 designs, and there's tons of good stuff on there, so definitely go check that out. And thank you for listening. We'll see you next time, which is in like 2 weeks. Bye.
Yes, see you later.